Today on the Mat Return, we sit down with Dr. Tim Smith, pediatric dentist, Division I wrestler, and purple belt here at White Mountain BJJ.
Welcome, Tim. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us, what got you into jiu-jitsu, like who you are? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Tim. I started wrestling when I was about 8 years old. And I didn't really love it, but I kind of had a knack for it. My dad kind of kept me moving along. He loved the sport. He didn't do it, but my older brother did. He loved the sport. So he would bribe me with Foster's Freeze ice cream. I kind of just kept doing it. I was, as an 8-year-old, I remember getting beat up by girls and stuff, but it did work out well. It was working for me. And then when I was in high school, I had to make a decision between, because in California, wrestling and soccer are winter sports. So I had to make a decision. And I made a decision to kind of stick to wrestling. So I continue to play other sports, but wrestling ended up becoming my passion. So when I, finished college and stuff, I kind of dabbled in a little bit of jiu-jitsu, kind of like garage jiu-jitsu. It was pretty early on. So this is like 2006, right after I think the, Ultimate Fighter kind of became a big deal. And so people were getting more and more into ultimate fighting and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. It was really starting to blow up at that time. And so I was pretty interested in it. So yeah, I used to go with some of my high school buddies, garage. And I remember the first armbar I ever hit was the same one that Matt Hughes hit on George St. Pierre. It was like the best feeling ever. And then I was hooked. Yeah.
You're like, Dana, where's my contract?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I knew I wasn't going to go beyond grappling. Like I didn't want to get hit in the face or anything like that. So I kind of went in some drop-in classes during that time to like a local Brazilian jiu-jitsu places in Santa Cruz. And one of them was called Claudio Franco. And I remember walking in and they matched me up with a blue belt. And I probably got triangled with the same move 10 times in a row. And, I wrestled in college and stuff. So they're like, take it easy on him. He's brand new to it. But the partner was like, well, he's a college wrestler. And I was like, I just kept throwing myself into a triangle over and over again. So then I was like, I knew I had a long ways to go to become good at the sport. And then I went, after dental school, I took a long break and didn't do anything besides maybe, wrestling every once in a while at some MMA gyms. But really when I got into jiu-jitsu was when I moved to Detroit for my pediatric dental residency. And I started this place called Detroit Jiu-Jitsu. And it was pretty high level place. It was very competition driven. And so that's where I really got started. And we had Dante Leon there, who at that time was like a 17-year-old, number of other really high level guys. Dante Leon, I think he's one of the best pound for pound guys in the world right now. But I didn't know who he was going to become at that time. And he would beat up everybody, including me. But it was cool to feel that level.
Sure.
And so that's where I really got my base of jiu-jitsu. Because it was so competition driven and I was going against high level guys, I probably didn't get a lot of my fundamentals really until I came here to White Mountain. But I learned how to compete in jiu-jitsu and learn the basics there. And I did some competitions, and that was a great time in my life. But coming here to White Mountain, being here with a different group of guys, really settled me into really learning the sport. And I've really enjoyed it here at White Mountain.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to back up just a little bit because you kind of really
Yeah.
raced over the college wrestling part of it.
Yeah.
You didn't just wrestle in college.
Yeah.
You wrestled at a D1 school at a real high level. Can you go into that a little bit? So your high school career had to be pretty successful to get into where you went to college and wrestling there. So
so I when I got to when I was in high school, I was pretty good in middle school. In high school, I was having success pretty early on, but I wasn't phenomenal or anything like that. But I worked really hard at the sport. I really put a lot into it. Would travel a lot. I would even go up to Stanford and wrestle with those guys just to get beat up on. That made me a lot better. And I ended up becoming a state place winner in California, which in that state, there's one state champ. There's not multiple divisions. I think there's about 25,000, give or take, high school wrestlers. So to place there was a big deal for me. I did that my senior year. And I then was offered to go wrestle at Brown University. I was, to be honest, I was probably like borderline, could have wrestled Division III, Division II, or Division I. But I chose Division I. And, you know, it was a really good experience. I wouldn't, you know, I got to wrestle with the best of the best, like, you know, all Americans, you know, national finalists. You know, I got to get through 4 years of Division I wrestling. Probably didn't have the success I had hoped at that level. You know, I wasn't an All-American or even a national qualifier. Probably somewhat of a 500 wrestler in my best year. But having that experience is something that I can't take away. And maybe it would have been a little more fun at Division III. You know, I got a lot more W's, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I know your wrestling is something that, having not wrestled, I wrestled a little bit in high school, but not wrestled in college. Grappling here when I started was the first time I had grappled since I was like 17. Yeah. But having a wrestler like your caliber, having the other wrestlers in the room really brings our game up a lot with takedowns, with, you know, footwork, with mat awareness. So it's definitely translatable to jiu-jitsu for sure, but it's a different level for sure. You know, it's really great to have it. And you also coach now, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I coach. I've been there, this is going on my 12th year at Plymouth State. We haven't had a lot of success in my 12 years, but it's been fun, you know, seeing I love working with this age group, like college kids. They're, you know, they're adults, they're men, but they're still kind of boys. So I like that age group. Plus, wrestling with them is fun because they already know how to wrestle, and I can get, you know, I can go live with them, and it's competitive. And it's not just like me wrestling with some middle school kids or high school kids. So I'm 41 now. I can still wrestle with these kids, but I don't know how much longer that's going to last. We'll see. But it's been fun. I'm more or less a volunteer coach. I'm only there like at this point in my life, like 1 day a week, but it kind of keeps me still with my foot on the mat or the door. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you also mentioned your residency. So you're a pediatric dentist here in town. Yeah. Take care of all of our kids' teeth. Yeah. And take care of some of our teeth too when we get them banged up in here. One thing we wanted to touch on, and we can touch on it now or later, maybe go into a little bit more about your career, like what got you into it. And then the normal segue into jiu-jitsu or combat sports would be the importance of mouth guards and using those kind of not only to protect your teeth, but maybe also like concussion prevention and different types of mouth guards. I think you can get, you know, the over-the-counter ones at Walmart or the ones that you can fit yourself that you buy off Amazon versus ones that you might make, you know, or have made for you at a dentist's office. So maybe start with your career, how you got into that, what you're doing now.
So I went to Boston University and for dental school, did 4 years of that, and then decided I wanted to just work with kids. So pediatric residency was in Detroit at Children's Hospital in Michigan, which, you know, we saw all sorts of trauma. So because of that, I really understand the importance of mouth guards, especially in sports. We actually I think the number one sport we saw injuries with teeth injuries was basketball, because they don't wear mouth guards very often. But if you watch, Steph Curry, LeBron James, they're wearing mouth guards. And there's reasons for that. It's not just to protect their teeth from chipping or getting knocked out, but concussions is huge, because it's just going to blunt the trauma to the head especially if you get hit with the lower jaw there. You're not going to get as much whiplash. Also, it can improve performance, because you're kind of really able to bite down on it, especially a sport like wrestling or jiu-jitsu, where sometimes you really just need to grit through something. I find it's been helpful when I've been in some uncomfortable positions like rear naked chokes or guillotines. Having that mouth guard kind of gives me that little bit of extra space and comfort level when I'm in those positions. So I'm not tapping necessarily to the pain, more so to an actual choke. So yeah, certainly, and it's obviously going to protect your teeth from getting knocked out, chipped. But if you get the ones that are over the counter, some of them are pretty good, but certainly the best are going to be the ones made in a dental office, just because they're going to take a mold of your mouth or impression of your mouth, and we make it in a lab with, and those ones too, some people have trouble, like they'll say they have trouble breathing or talking with it. I find that the ones made in the dental office, yes, it's going to affect your speech a bit, but I have no trouble breathing with it, and I can still talk with it just fine. And you could test it. You have one.
Yeah, I have a big difference in using it versus not using it. I lost a tooth from rolling without one in, and it was just exactly that. I think the other thing it does too is it lines up your bite a little bit, so that if your jaw's off a little bit, it's not teeth rubbing against each other on an odd angle, which is how I broke that tooth. It's against that soft rubber, so it's kind of a little bit more forgiving, or soft plastic, whatever it is. But I think also the thing we wanted to kind of dive into a little bit, because we do have a lot of kids that are doing classes. Our kids' classes are growing quite a bit. Is maybe talking to the importance of getting something like this for your kids early on, and not just jiu-jitsu, but other sports, right? To promote healthy tooth development and make sure that they're not suffering trauma. Even, I mean, baby teeth might be one thing, but definitely the young teeth when they're first coming in. Kids are playing basketball or playing soccer or coming to jiu-jitsu, and taking those impacts, or even just pressure, right? A lot of we don't strike a lot, but a lot of our stuff is just that shoulder pressure that's on the jaw, and it's moving. So I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit too.
At a young age, maybe want to buy the over-the-counter ones just because their mouth's going to change. And you don't want to pay for multiple ones throughout every couple of years when they lose a new tooth and gets a new. But once they reach about 12, 13, typically things will stabilize, and a mouth guard can last for many years at that point. Some of the ones I've had for, I think I've had it for like 8 years. So, and it's not going away anytime soon. So they last a long time. So they're well worth the money. I think, most offices will do a pretty good price. Yeah.
How often on average should people be thinking about changing them out? You said you have yours for 8 years, which
I think you change it out as long as it fits in your mouth, and just keeping it clean. Some of those ultrasonic cleaners are great to have. You can buy one of those things, probably on Amazon for $50. So keep it clean, and I don't see any reason. I typically will lose mine before I ever have to change it out. Yeah. Okay. Good. Or if you have any other dental work, you're probably gonna have to change it out. But
so if anything changes your teeth, you probably need to change your mouth guard.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. So competition. You've competed obviously at a real high level in wrestling, both in high school and college.
Yeah.
How about jiu-jitsu?
Jiu-jitsu, I've competed probably not as much as I'd like. I'd say I've competed at white belt, a couple times at blue belt, and once at purple belt. I do want to prepare when I compete, so I want to be in good shape. So I want to do well when I compete. I certainly would compete more. I think sometimes the nerves get to me from even doing it, even though I competed so much in wrestling. It was always something that I didn't love. Not that I love the results of wrestling, but I always had a lot of nerves going into it. And so that was always a challenge. I mean, I love the sport of wrestling, but competing was always hard. I mean, it was leading up to it, cutting weight, getting just like super tired out there, and the nerves. It was, you know, I was happy to be done. Now with jiu-jitsu, I'm kind of, you know, when I do it, I get those same feelings a little bit, not to the same extent, but that probably holds me back more. I think, you know, Miguel, one of our black belts, is doing his competition classes. And that could be really good for, you know, just kind of learning how to deal with your nerves, because although it's in the room and you know everybody, you still have to go out there and perform in front of other people while they're all watching you and scoring the match. So I think that's something that's really beneficial to with White Mountain, having that option too, because that'll really help, I think, when it comes to real game time.
Yeah.
As far as not being as nervous and.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of getting over that adrenaline dump.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
Being able to focus past it. And yeah. So besides parallels with competing in wrestling and jiu-jitsu, differences, like obviously with jiu-jitsu, we have weight classes. Some people cut weight, some people just decide to compete where they are. Besides that, with wrestling, what other, I guess, comparisons, differences would you say are the most kind of striking about competing? So, I mean, jiu-jitsu at a, I would say, a hobbyist level, even if you're competing like in, you know, the Opens down in Boston or wherever, it's still kind of, you're going to get a wide gamut. You're going to see professionals there, and you're going to see people who are just done a month of jiu-jitsu and decide to jump into a tournament, right?
Yeah.
So the levels are different, divergent, but I would imagine a lot of the commonality about the preparation to it is the same. And people, you know, like you said, even a seasoned competitor, the nerves can still get to you and kind of affect you. But what kind of things do you do to sort of dull that or get past that with a competition?
I'd say the biggest thing that I've learned over my years is breath is a good way to really help with your nerves in the match and before the match. I don't think there's a need to go out there and be 100% right off the bat. I mean, you know, it's you know, it's relatively long. It's, you know, depending on your belt level, it can be up 10 minutes. So just going out there and slow breaths, listening to your breath and letting what you know do the action. Try not to think as much. Try to just focus on your breath. That's a huge thing. It's easier said than done. If it was easy, no one would have an issue with it. But I think it's a really important part of it. And just trying to be loose, just knowing that, you know, we're just having fun, especially as a hobbyist, you know, trying to remind yourself of that. Being warmed up is really important in jiu-jitsu or in wrestling. You ideally go in there with a sweat, you know, because if you go in there cold, you're more likely to get tired really quickly. When I was a wrestler, one of the things I would do is I would always have a match, maybe not a full like 7-minute match, but maybe a round or two with one of my teammates, and in a live go. We're going as hard as we can, but we do that during our warm up. So, you know, some people says, well, you're going to be tired then for your first match. No, you're not. You're going to have plenty of time and you're going to feel better because you just kind of get all that. You open up your lungs already. You got rid of some of your jitters. You got rid of some of that adrenaline that you don't, and you're going to feel better in your match. So that would be my biggest thing is, you know, breath and getting a good hard warm up where you really get your heart racing, your lungs open. Maybe you're not going to be able to go live go, but you can mimic some of that with just a good hard warm up.
Sure.
Yeah.
And do you see a lot of difference between how you used to train and prepare like in your 20s versus now competing in your 40s?
Yeah. I mean, when I was in my 20s, it was, you know, I was college wrestling. So I was cutting more weight. In jiu-jitsu, I honestly don't think that, especially gi, competing in a gi, cutting your weight's only going to hurt you, to a certain extent. Like if it's a pound or two, no big deal. But you'd rather just be up a weight and be comfortable, nice and hydrated. The weight difference doesn't make as much of a difference as it does in wrestling. I remember in wrestling, I was wrestled 149 all 4 years, but when I'd wrestle with the 157 pounder, which is just the one weight class above, it felt a world of difference. But in jiu-jitsu, I can roll with heavyweights and because it's a different sport in that sense. So yeah, I would say, as far as the differences, yeah, I don't cut weight. That's one big thing. Plus, as a hobbyist, we're doing this for fun. So I don't want to cut weight. I don't want to be miserable all week. I will, still eat healthy throughout the week. I'm going to be prepared, but I don't need to cut weight. Other differences is like, with jiu-jitsu compared to wrestling, if I can control my nerves, I don't need to be able to go 100% the whole time. And it's not going to necessarily help me that much. I don't need to be full blown, gas down on the pedal the whole time. So I don't have to be in as good a shape I was in my 20s. It probably would help to be, but we're always looking for injury prevention. For me, the way I work out nowadays is my goal for, outside of jiu-jitsu and in jiu-jitsu is for longevity. So I have a young child, so I want to be able to still hang out with him, still play sports with him until he's in his teenage years. So a lot of my stuff is focused on balance, mobility, and strength, not as much about like how heavy I can lift or how hard I can run. So that's been something that I've really figured out. Taking it a little more easy and be able to do things right makes a big difference as you get older.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Have less room for error.
Yeah.
The more years you rack up.
Yeah. I've really gotten into, Craig will do a lot of it in his warm-ups. It's kind of that animal flow.
Movement. Yeah.
And once a week, I really focus on that as my workout for the day. And, I think it's helped my jiu-jitsu, but it's also just helped my body. My body feels really good doing that once a week.
Yeah, it's important to do a lot of, I think, recovery type work, even with workouts. Yeah. As you get older, because you don't recover as well. Yeah. Your injuries tend to nag and stick around for a little bit longer or resurface. Yeah. You think you're over them, and all of a sudden that elbow pops again, or that shoulder gets cranky again. But focusing on, like you said, mobility, like joint range of motion, recovery, strength, which is, I think, gets more important the older we get. We take it for granted when we're young, because you can go into the weight room and, bench press, double your body weight. But as you get older, you don't need that anymore. No. But you do need strength. You do need that integrity around the joints in order to keep moving and 100%. Keep doing things. And I think this helps a lot. Jiu-jitsu does. Yes. It can also hurt a lot. If you're allowing people to crank on your joints or your neck, or not tapping when you should be tapping, not getting out of things the way you should, it definitely can take a toll. But like, it sounds like your workouts are more based on preserving strength, preserving mobility, and maximizing recovery, which I think is awesome. What other things, you mentioned you have a young son, so family, what other things do you have outside of jiu-jitsu besides work that you know?
Yeah, I have a 16-month-year-old, so a 16-month. And he takes up a lot of my free time now, because my wife stays home. So when I'm around, if I'm not at work, I try to be as present as I can. So jiu-jitsu has been one of my I used to have a lot of different things I do outside of work, but that's one of the things I kept for myself, and my wife has allowed me to keep that, which is really nice, because it's really important to me, and we'll go into that later. But Yeah. So when I used to play a lot more disc golf. I haven't played as much since I've had Andy, but I do enjoy disc golf. I like, I'll play a little pickleball. I like just playing sports. I do a lot of hiking because I can do that with Andy. So as he gets older, it's going to be fun because I'm going to do more and more stuff that I used to do. Yeah. Because I'll be able to go disc golf with him. I'll be able to play pickleball with him. I'll be able to play soccer with him, so I can get back into those things. And that's why some of the physical stuff that we talked about earlier is so important to me. So I want to get back to doing those things. So right now with him, a lot of, I have jiu-jitsu, I have work, I have, family life. And then, every day I work out. So that's something I always put aside, and my wife knows that's important for me. Having the physical side of like every morning waking up and doing some exercise, she knows that that's important for me to be more present as a father and other areas of my life. So, that's a big thing. So like I usually, going back to some of the workout stuff, I do like mobility once a week, jiu-jitsu once a week, maybe wrestling. I always do a strength, and I do a lot of kettlebell. I do a day of cardio, and maybe cardio and quickness, and then maybe another day of strength. So I fill up my 7 days with different workouts, and I think that's really helped me stay healthy because every day is a different thing. And I wake up pretty much every morning not knowing what I'm going to do that day, unless it's something scheduled like jiu-jitsu. And I kind of do what I feel my body wants that morning. And it tends to be different every day. So like if I don't feel like doing upper body strength, but I feel like doing some cardio, I'll do that. Yep. So I think that makes it easy for me to continue to do so, because I'm never doing things that I don't want to do. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned every morning you wake up and work out. There's a lot of talk about morning routines and how important they are. And, you see a lot of like influencers hyping their morning routine. They get up at 2:30 in the morning and run a marathon, and then, power lift for 3 hours, and then go and have a 12-hour work day, and, still spend time with their family and take their wife out on a date and do that all in 45 minutes sleep a night. But realistically, do you have, besides the exercise, do you have like a morning routine that you like to do, or is it just, hey, I'm going to get up and I'm going to exercise and I'm going to kind of figure out what it is from there, or is it?
Yeah. I do. I kind of do figure it out. As much as I like routines, I also like not being in a routine. So my workouts are not long. They're just frequent. I do them. I've stayed consistent. So they're usually from a half, as short as like 15 minutes some days if I'm really tight, never longer than an hour. So I pack it in though. When I'm working out, I'm working out hard. So, but yeah, when I wake up in the morning, I usually have a cup of coffee. Now it's decaf. I switched decaf. I just learned I have a little less anxiety when I go into work, when I don't have caffeine. Catch up on the news and do my workout, and then hang out with my son for a little bit before I head off to work. But I've incorporated a few other things, like I do cold plunge probably 3-4 days a week. I built a cold plunge for my house. It helps my mood, helps me kind of really just wake up. I'll sometimes do it first thing in the morning, right when I wake up. Sometimes I'll do it after my workout. Again, I change it up, and if I don't feel like doing that day, I just don't do it that day. Most days I do either want to do it, or I feel like I can push myself and do it. So, and I've learned, even with the cold plunge, just like my working out, it's like I dial it back a little bit. I used to go really cold and really long, and it just made it so I didn't want to do it. And it was more of a chore at that point. So I've made it maybe a little bit warmer, and, just go in there as long as I want, and much more enjoyable. And I'm doing it more often then. Yeah.
Consistency is the big thing.
Yes.
I think that was our first podcast was, the value of consistency in training jiu-jitsu, like with the MatReturn, where our focus is on guys and girls who have maybe like not done sports for a while, middle-aged, either getting into jiu-jitsu or have been away from it for a bit and want to get back into it. And, you know, the key really, I think you touched on with exercise, with, I think with jiu-jitsu too, being a bit older when I started it now, is that consistency, that the intensity isn't as important, right? It's not important to go 100% or 90% every time you're in here, but you're in here, and you build over time, and that shows in your technique, in your longevity, and which that's the definition of it. But also I think it helps with progression as well, because you're always kind of dredging that path, you know, like you're always kind of repeating those movements, and you're like, you know, you can do an arm bar 100 times, and the 101st time you do it, you're like, that's how my hips are supposed to move, right?
And so that's the best feeling.
Yeah, but that only comes because you paid your dues over a period of time. But the same thing with fitness routines. It's like you can work out like a demon once a month, and it's probably not going to do you as good as if you work out, kind of dial it back and do it 4 times a week.
Yeah, and I know that with my jiu-jitsu. Like I started jiu-jitsu in 2012, so a long time, and I've been doing it since 2012. But my consistency is not there. I'll take sometimes periods of time off, but the big thing is that even when I am consistently going, like throughout the whole, like maybe 6 months, it's usually just once a week. And am I going to get better going once a week? Yeah, I'll get better. But if I went 3 times a week, I'd get a lot better. The good news is my body feels really good going once a week. The bad news is like it does take a lot longer to move up belts and to really take those big leaps.
But I think part of what you said, like using your cold plunge example, like you don't want it to become a chore, right? So you can cold plunge for 10 minutes at 30 degrees and get out and your lips are blue and it takes you 45 minutes to warm up. Or you can do it at 50 degrees for 3 minutes and feel good when you get out. And the same thing with jiu-jitsu. If 3 times a week is, you know, you can't see your kids and your wife's mad at you now because you're never home, and you know, your work's suffering and your body's a wreck because you're going so frequently and so hard, it becomes something that you won't continue with over time, and then you drop off and now you're making no progress. So even once a week, if you're doing it at a, you know, and you're learning at a at that level, it's probably better for you than A, not doing it at all, or B, doing it guns blazing and burning out in a year.
Yeah, especially at this stage in my life and this stage in my jiu-jitsu career. Once a week is probably not ideal, maybe 2 days a week, but once a week, I tell you that I'm genuinely excited to come to jiu-jitsu, and I'm not like sore. I feel really good. It's actually really, it's a good spot for me. 2 days a week is probably ideal. And sometimes I do get in 2 days a week, but I like to at least that one day when I do come in, I like to roll hard or a lot of times because I'm not here as often. So, you know, when I do come in, because it's only 1 day a week, that's when I want to, you know, get some hard rolls. Yeah.
And I think that's a good message for us to put out to people too, is that just getting in here is the important thing. Right? Don't beat yourself up if it can't be 2-3 times a week. You know, there's 6 classes in a week and I only made 1. It's like, but you made that 1. You know, and it's better than if you made none. Or you made, you know, you're coming once every 2 weeks because that's what your schedule can do, but just keep coming. And part of our goal here is to outreach with folks that are, you know, struggling with getting here at all, or struggling with getting here with any sort of consistency. And, you know, class times are varied, so we try to get people in here early in the morning if they can't come at night, or at night if they can't come in the morning. So it hopefully it makes it available and accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be a better place if more people train jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Well, yeah.
We learn a lot on the mats that is transferable outside of here too.
100%.
So, being coming in here and like you said, pediatric dentists, we've got engineers, we've got police, we've got people who are kind of at the top of their field. But you come in here as a white belt, and you're starting all over again. Yeah. Come in here at any belt, and you may get bested by anybody. So it's good to have that sort of flat kind of surface to kind of come in on and prove yourself every time. I think where you're we're all the same when we get on here and come with what you got. And learn and hopefully share what you know. Build a community a little bit. But you'd mentioned that jiu-jitsu is important to you outside of just here too. So you want to talk some more about that?
Yeah. Just on another note, you mentioned being a white belt and coming in. I have so much respect for people who have no grappling background or a martial arts background and then come to jiu-jitsu. And because that's so hard. I had a wrestling background, so I had that really helped me right off the bat. I was familiar with rolling around and getting in these weird positions and being smashed and all that. But when someone comes in with just nothing, I have a ton of respect for them. Yes, I'm still gonna make them feel it, and because that's important for them. But they automatically have my respect. A wrestler comes in here, you really have to show more consistency for me to be okay, you're doing something really hard, because they already have they've done all this. It's not new to them. But I think it's brave. But
sure.
On another note, with jiu-jitsu, one of the things my dad would tell me, he's talked about the 5 pillars of life or something, things that you always need. It's important to try to fulfill in your life. I'm probably getting this wrong a little bit, but I think it's physical, emotional, social, intellectual, and spiritual. And the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is it fills so many of those things. Certainly physical, no doubt, right? You're using strength, mobility, cardio, all in one. I mean, you can't beat that. Emotional, it's an emotional roller coaster when you're coming to jiu-jitsu classes, when you're competing, when you're leaving. The good feeling you have. It really is. It fulfills that need, not completely, but it kind of fills that bucket a little bit. Social, 100%. We have this beautiful community here. Intellectual, the chess game of jiu-jitsu, we always talk about it. I think about jiu-jitsu a lot more than I do it. So I'll learn a technique here in class, and I think about it over and over again. And then when I come back again, I can go back to it. And I actually use it to help me fall asleep a lot of times, which is weird to some people. Oh, you think about fighting while you sleep? Yeah, I'm not necessarily fighting, but just the moves, and it really helps me fall asleep. It's meditative for me. But certainly that intellectual standpoint of jiu-jitsu is huge. Spiritual, to each their own. Some people will find that this is spiritual. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but certainly, you can make that argument too. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think there's I haven't heard it put that way, but it certainly makes a lot of sense that you're filling a lot of slots in our needs, right? With what jiu-jitsu offers us in the the way that it does it is sort of insidious. You don't exactly. I don't know if a lot of people come to jiu-jitsu for socialization. They don't come to jiu-jitsu necessarily for emotional support or a community, but you wind up getting a lot of that when you get into this.
Yeah.
And it happens slowly because you're giving as much as you're getting. I think in a lot of cases, like we have a lot of really interesting, neat stories here with the folks that come in here and why they're here, different reasons why they're here, and you learn a lot about people and who they are and their motivations when you're on the mats with them. I don't know if you get that anywhere else, and it's kind of crazy to call jiu-jitsu safe, but it is. It's a safe environment, right? That you're practicing, essentially hurting each other, but there's a huge amount of trust in that.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to trust that if you have my arm, you're not going to dislocate it or rip it off. You're going to be controlled in your submission. Same thing if you've got your arm around my neck. I've got to trust that if I tap, you're going to let go.
Yeah.
But it's, where you can have that level, and it's funny describing it to people who don't do jiu-jitsu. I get the same look all the time. They get this wide-eyed, their brows go up. They're like, you do what?
Yeah.
So it's really a very safe and peaceful environment that I haven't really found anywhere else.
Yeah.
I think dropping that ego also takes a lot, where you don't necessarily have that outside, in the workplace or in other places. There's always that kind of social posturing that goes on, positioning, and in here it's like you don't have that.
No.
You're as good as your last roll, basically.
Yeah.
Or as good as you're able to teach. So
yeah, the humility part of wrestling. I mean, you're always going to get no matter how good you are, could be the best guy at White Mountain Jiu-Jitsu, but you're going to get beat up by somebody else. And here, we have some tough guys that, beat up me every day. And I was a Division I wrestler, and, I could have came in here with just, well, it doesn't matter what I think I am. It's going to show on the mat. Yeah. Yep. And so your humility is going to be part of it. You can't do jiu-jitsu for a long time and not be humble in a certain respect. Yeah. Because it's going to come to you. You're going to get a dose of humble pie at some point.
And that's usually the turning point for a lot of people.
Yes.
Whether they continue or not.
Yeah.
Is whether they can digest the humble pie or
yeah.
or they decide not to come back. But yeah, it's true. I remember it happening to me, and that was a turning point.
Yeah.
Whether I was going to stick with it or not.
Yeah.
And it's a great lesson to learn, because there's a lot on the other side of that. Getting past that discomfort, getting past that. A lot of, like you said, you're going to put it on the white belts and make them uncomfortable. But if they can get to the other side of that discomfort, of having somebody on top of them, of feeling claustrophobic,
yeah.
There's a lot on that other side.
Yes.
That you learn about yourself, and it can transfer a lot to your everyday life outside of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's a great feeling to overcome.
Yeah.
And when you make those leaps and bounds in your own skill level, you see it. I mean, it's so easy to see it in jiu-jitsu, to see the improvement. In other areas of life, it can be really hard to see. But in jiu-jitsu, it's pretty. When you tap someone that you've never tapped before, that's pretty raw, and it's a really good feeling.
Or don't get tapped by someone who's always been tapping you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to speak on what you were talking about earlier with the community, I just think a lot of times a lot of us come out of high school or college, and we played sports, and you had that camaraderie. Then you get into with the real world, and you're working, you have family, and you kind of lose that.
Yeah.
And I think that ends up being a void for a lot of adults, male and female. Mm-hmm. And for me, like having, the wrestling team helped me with that, to be honest. Although I'm a coach, I just feel like I'm part of the team. But jiu-jitsu is the same thing. You're part of a team. You have this instant camaraderie with these guys, because you're sweating, you're bleeding with them, you're choking each other out, and you're doing it in a like I said, a safe way, and you end up becoming really. Maybe you're not going out and getting beers or every day with these guys, but you end up becoming friends with, pretty much everyone you roll with. So that's another big motivation to continue jiu-jitsu is just that camaraderie aspect.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up in the way you said it too, where it's a void that maybe a lot of people don't realize is a void.
Yeah.
You know, and that probably speaks more to the social aspect of it, not necessarily being outside and you know, like you said, getting beers together. But
yeah.
Maybe. But for the most part, it's like you're coming here, you're doing something hard together with like-minded people who want to improve.
Yeah.
And you have that in common with them, and it winds up becoming a link between you and somebody you may never have. You guys don't run in the same social circles, work circles, anything like that. But what do you have in common? You have jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know, and that becomes the kind of linchpin.
Yeah, I think you know, it's primal. It's like, you know, the cavemen, they had this camaraderie. They want to hunting visit. You know, they together with a bunch of other cavemen, and they did hard things together. I think we're meant to do that. And so when you don't have that, it can be in a lot of different forms, but jiu-jitsu is one of them. Yeah.
Hey, camera guy here. I got a quick question for Dr. Tim from the community. This one is from Josh. So wrestlers are competitors by default, and jiu-jitsu is something that can be a lifetime season. These young men that are going to be stepping onto the mats for the first time, not as a wrestling competitor, but as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, what advice would you give to them? What's their plan for staying competitive, even though they're going to be beginners at some aspects of jiu-jitsu, even though they are experts at wrestling? Also, if you could talk about which wrestling habits are going to backfire and what they can lean into, and also what they can stop over-relying on so they stick with the sport.
Yeah, so when I got into when I got into jiu-jitsu, I initially just used a lot of wrestling. And it's going to be hard not to. You know, that's what you know. You don't know jiu-jitsu. But as you get more comfortable with it and you let that ego go a little bit, ends up being more fun to sit on your butt and learn how to, you know, play off your back and play guard, and it's going to make you better at the sport. So I think, you know, I understand the feeling and not of just wanting to wrestle when you start jiu-jitsu, but eventually, you know, right off the bat, go ahead and just wrestle, and you're going to learn that it only takes you so far. But the sooner you can just kind of embrace the sport of jiu-jitsu, the better. A lot of people think they think it's weird that I mainly do gi because I have this wrestling background, but I just love gi because it's a little bit more different than wrestling. I think I'm a little more susceptible to getting beat, and so it ends up, you know, I have more. Not now because I just mainly do gi, so I'm actually better at gi than I am no gi now. But when I first started, gi was harder, and but that also makes it more fun when you have more to learn. Yeah. And the less and with no gi, I can probably use my wrestling a lot more, but in gi, you really have to learn. Really have to learn that.
Yeah. We have a number of young guys who are here now who are pretty successful high school wrestlers, and they, like you said, tend to gravitate more toward no gi.
Yeah.
That's what they know.
Yeah.
You know, and even though they're advancing really quickly in jiu-jitsu using submissions, and there's still that trepidation to going over to gi.
Yes.
You know, where it's going to be slower. It's going to be, I don't know if I'd say more technical, but you know, you have to consider a lot more because there's a lot more grips. There's a lot more ways to get hung up in gi. You know, your speed, while it's always going to be beneficial, isn't probably as much of a benefit in gi as it is in no gi.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like you said, you can't rely on the thing you know the best as well. You have to become more well-rounded as a grappler.
And don't get me wrong, I still use a lot of wrestling, and especially against higher level grapplers. Like if I'm rolling with wrestle. And Craig, I'm going to have to use a lot of my wrestling to stay alive. And not necessarily, just so I can, use my quickness or strength or, try to be on top. But when I go with lower belts, I really try to use very little wrestling and just try to use, pure jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
All right.
I think we covered just about everything. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about or say? Or
I think I covered it. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
It was fun.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Anthony, anything else that you want us to go over?
That was the most important question.
Yeah.
Josh told me I need to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Asked and answered. Awesome. Well, thanks, Tim.
Hey, thank you.
Good having you on.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for tuning back into the Mat Return. Hopefully we'll have some more episodes coming out a little bit more frequently. So, right. See you guys soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tim.